On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Hello, son. God bless you. Tell me something. Are you hungry? I know of a place where they can feed you, huh? Can you hear me?
I wonder what's wrong with him.
Once I get you.
What is it, Chaparro? Are you tired? You're getting old.
We'll just see about that, girl.
Tell the DA I want to have a conversation with him, but that I want a nice offer for my freedom in return.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Hello, son. God bless you. Tell me something. Are you hungry? I know of a place where they can feed you, huh? Can you hear me?
I wonder what's wrong with him.
Once I get you.
What is it, Chaparro? Are you tired? You're getting old.
We'll just see about that, girl.
Tell the DA I want to have a conversation with him, but that I want a nice offer for my freedom in return.
Embakasi Utawala tuko locked. Ungem Utanyahururu Kasuku Massive
Jeshi ya Nyeri Coast Maua na Kura kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Auta Idara Kitengela
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxa pale go down. Karatina Auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Auta Githurai 45 Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Auta Carnation Maragwa Seti
Nairobi
Fika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ngwaro.
Auta Gilgil
live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive
Thika Massive
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County
Busia Boda
Kisumu City
Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to every Ghana.
Hamjambo wa Kenya wenzangu. Mimi ni prosecutor. Niko hapa kusisitiza maagizo ambayo tunapewa na Wizara ya Afya kuhusu ugonjwa wa coronavirus. Tunaambiwa pahali pana watu wengi lazima tuweke distance, yani kuweka hatua mita 1 kwa mwenzako. Ukienda kwa matatu, weka distance. Ukienda kwa soko ama pale popote mkusanyiko wa watu, ni vizuri uweze kupeana hiyo social distance ili tuweze kumaliza maambukizi. Tukifuata haya masharti ama maagizo ambayo tunapewa na Wizara ya Afya, hakika tutaangamiza coronavirus na hali yetu ya kawaida tutairudia. Asanteni sana.
This Monday on KBC Channel 1.
Kini wangu, si nimekuadmire. I am very proud of you.
One step at a time. Si maduki wa proof scans. Na leo asubuhi huo mtu amebonga naye. Tukoje tuone vile kutaenda.
Stop laughing. Where am I? Where am I? Please, I need you to tell me where I am.
Just calm down. Hold on now. I want an explanation.
Hand over my baby and my things, or I'll call the police on you.
The moment I met you, you made my life complete. Butterfly kisses after bedtime prayer in my world before you.
Well, good morning, and once again, good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's edition of Sports Check with me, Richard Munga. And as I mentioned before the break during GMK, our guest today, our first guest, is none other than Herbert Mochiro, who is an aspirant for the upcoming FKF presidential elections, and he is among, well, quite a number, and he's here to tell us why he should be the one who is entrusted with that office and why he thinks he can actually do that, get in the office, as we have a lot of people who are actually hoping to, unseat the incumbent, that is Nick Mwendwa. Among others, you have, well, Sam Nyamoya. We shall be talking about the politics behind the upcoming election and football development in the country. So thank you very much, Herbert, for joining us here on KBC's Sports Check.
Thank you very much, Richard, and good morning.
Good morning to you too.
Yeah.
So now, you're not a new face to Kenyan football, and the last time you were in the headlines was a while back when you were the CEO, the deputy CEO of Football Kenya Federation. So maybe what have you been doing since then in terms of developing football?
Basically, I've been involved in sport. I mean, I consider myself an all-round sportsman, so I've been involved in sports. I sit in the KEPSA, Kenya Private Sector Alliance Board for Sports. I'm the chairman, as well as also I'm the chairman of the Sports and Environment Commission in the National Olympic Committee of Kenya. So I have not been far away from sports. I also happen to be a committee member of the Confederation of Africa Youth Committee. And so my involvement in football has not been far away. I'm very much in it.
Okay. Now, as an aspirant for the upcoming FKF elections, the presidential elections specifically, and with today's interview themed the future of Kenyan football, how does the future of Kenyan football look, just generally, according to you, from your perspective at the moment?
Well, the future of Kenyan football looks bright, in my perspective. Basically, if we get the right people in place, put in the right structures, and develop the right partnerships, definitely we have places to go in terms of Kenyan football. We have been there, we just want to get back there and go there beyond. And so for me, I'm quite optimistic about Kenyan football if we get it right moving forward.
Okay, we'll be talking about the question of governance, sports governance, in this instance, football management and whatnot. But we've been having everyone coming in saying, hey, I have great plans for football in this country. Once I get into office, I'm going to, let's say, get corporates to come in, support the game, get broadcasters to come in and support the game. You specifically, as sports stakeholder in this country, really, and what can you say has been the biggest problem in actually having corporates trusting us or trusting the people who run football in the country?
I think for me the key thing is, one, we have behaved badly. We've had poor governance. We've had governance at a very low threshold. And it's time that we ensure that the level of governance is at an ultimate high. There's need for a lot of trust, there's need for a lot of integrity, and most importantly, people who want to spend money on others want to know about, want reassurance on transparency and accountability. I think those are the key things that we must bring. So we have to create a value-based system for sports. We have to build in trust. You give me your shilling, you give me your dollar, I've got to ensure that you get your ROI, and I need to be trustworthy. I need to package this product so that you can like it, so that you can be able to develop it, you can be able to sponsor it or put funds into it. So for me, one, let's build the trust. The management of football needs somebody who can be trusted, somebody whose integrity is high, transparent, and accountable to everybody who gives a shilling or a dollar.
Now, you've mentioned it's all about gaining trust with the corporates for them to come in and support football in this country. But given the long list of cases, accountability issues that have faced different offices in the recent years, not only the current office, the office before that, which had a lot of cases in terms of integrity and accountability. How do you think you can change that mindset for the corporates, that is, to tell them, to show them that, hey, look, I'm not like these other guys. I can actually do this and this with your money, and in the long term, you can see the results. How do you change that mindset, considering, we've not had the best of records in recent years?
For me, clear cut, my theme for moving on forward is I'm emphasizing a lot on governance and sustainability. For me, governance is quite key. And within that, I'm looking to ensure that I touch the right buttons with the corporates and other supporters of football, giving them a reassurance that we shall be responsible. We shall be financially responsible on how to look after monies that we get as a corporation, as a federation. We rely on goodwill, and we have to build goodwill. We have to build trust. We have to build partnerships, all right? And in my vision, I am putting the trust element, the accountability element at the center of how I want to move forward in packaging football. It's about time football stakeholders got somebody they could trust. And I believe myself and my team, with my vision, with my ideas that we want to articulate, are the right people to do that. It's all about gaining the trust of the partners, having a clear-cut vision, and ensuring at the end of the day, we're able to account for every shilling, every dollar, every penny, every cent that we receive.
Okay. Now, you've talked about the ideas that you have going forward, what you plan to do for Kenyan football should you get elected to the office.
Yeah.
But we've had this issue of people saying that in order to attract corporates, we have to actually make the game more attractive. We have to package it in a more attractive way, in a more commercial way.
Yeah.
So maybe, do you have any thoughts on that and any ideas as to how to make that a reality?
Richard, football itself is no longer just a game. It's an industry. It's a business. Globally, it's one of the biggest, actually the fourth largest industry in the world, and it's the game of football. I think that's the direction we need to take. That's what we need to implant in Kenya. We need to seek partnerships and sell the idea that football works. It can grow into an industry that can generate employment for various sectors within the game. It's not just the footballers that we're talking about, the coaches, referees, administrators. It's broadcasters, it's media. Yeah, there's industries that can come out of football, and that's what we need to be able to create that environment. We need to be able to jumpstart the industry, to kick it forward, so that we're building. Yeah? Secondly, we make our game attractive. We start bringing in the numbers back. We want to bring in the numbers back to the stadiums. We want to increase the numbers on the TVs. Technology now has reached at a level where digital platforms are key. So we want to reach out and we want to make this whole football industry, whole football game, a family-friendly thing altogether. Something that will attract, something that will say, this weekend, let me and my family go and watch football. It doesn't matter what level of football that you're going to, whether it's a stadium or school or grassroots or academy football, but we want people to eat, live, drink, sleep, and talk football. Yeah.
And I actually do agree with what you're saying. But the issue usually comes in, we talk about making the game attractive, bringing people back onto the pitches, watching the games and whatnot. Yeah. But how do we actually achieve that? Because you did mention that we are not only targeting the top tier football. Something surprising actually. Most National Super League games attract more audiences than Kenya Premier League matches. How do we ensure that we actually get people to come watch our top tier football games? Because if they're not watching the top tier league, it's not bad watching the NSL, but if you don't have the numbers watching the KPL, which is your main, let's say, main brand as a federation, then how do you convince people that you can also come and cheer for our top boys, not only supporting the footballers who are coming up?
We have to start at the basics, and for me, grassroots. Soccer Mashinani is where we want to start. Yeah? Taking it right from the bottom, the grassroots level of the game, because it is at the Mashinani that we have to start getting the interest. We have to start seeing the quality coming through down. We have to ensure that we have good structures, good youth development structures, and that means involving the schools. For me, mass engagement of football at the Mashinani level, and I'll repeat, Soccer Mashinani, is where it needs to start. Because once we get the interest down there, then it scales up to the top. So for me, we start at the bottom, moving up. And that's where the emphasis has got to be. The quality then starts coming from the bottom, heading up. Grassroots, Soccer Mashinani, moving up forward.
Okay. And what do you think the issue usually is when you have a lot of students, a lot of schools performing really well in school games, be it high school or primary, and mostly high school games because they're quite prominent in this country. Your footballers performing quite well, but then again you look at the number of those footballers making a transition into, let's say, professional, let's say getting into the National Super League or the Kenya Premier League. It's not usually easy for most of them. How do we change that? How do we actually encourage them so that it's not a matter of just playing football in school as a part-time, as a pastime activity, and then after that you have to go do your engineering course, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a journalist. How do we convince them that football can actually be a paying career?
The right structures in place, the emphasis on quality football, coming down from the bottom. Once students finish school, the transition, basically, if we have strong leagues, even at the bottom, because we have 6 levels of football here. We have our top league, which is the Premier League, and that cascade goes down all the way right to the sub-county leagues. So if we've got working sub-county structures that move on to the county structures, then to the regional structures, then coming up to the 3rd tier, 2nd tier and top, and as long as it is a quality-based system, then you'll find that it will be attractive to these players to see themselves progressing. You must have a career progression. By the time you get to it, is only maybe 1 or 2 exceptional talents that will get done. But the rest, a quality-based system that sees a progression right from the bottom, grassroots moving up forward, will actually be good for us, because then we will be pushing a lot more quality from the bottom to the top of the leagues. And in the end, we will have a strong league. But the emphasis is to ensure that we have quality at the bottom, in terms of coaching, in terms of clubs, in sort of solid structures, and ensuring that there the competition starts down, moving up. Yeah.
Let's say the elections are to be held next week, and you are elected to be, let's say, the new president of Football Kenya Federation. Because you also mentioned progress. It's all about progression, where change takes a while. In most cases, if not all. But then again, so maybe what would be your first order? Let's say once you got into office. I'm talking about short-term, short-term, ambitions, and then you have the long-term, the ones that you can ensure that once you're done, even if you're not elected for a second term, you've actually made a legacy of yourself in the Kenyan football scene. But what would be your short-term and long-term ambitions?
To my short-term immediately is to ensure that we bring in all the football stakeholders together. I mean, at the moment, we're too much apart. For me, inclusivity is a big thing. Let's ensure that we have all the bona fide stakeholders sitting together and charting out Kenya's football. Yeah, it's important that we have a stakeholders symposium, so that we can then build on having a strategic football plan for the long term. So the immediate is to bring in stakeholders together, and at the same time now chart out what's our long-term football plan, something that will outlive me. Even when I'm out of office, it will still continue as a plan moving forward. So a football strategic plan moving forward is important. And we have to look at the tenets that come into place. We have things like women's football. We must concentrate on that. We must build it. Yeah, we have the national teams. We must focus on the national teams. Do we want our national teams just to be participants, or do we want them to be competitors for top honors? And how do we do that? We have to put that into place. We have to plan for them. We will look at the leagues again, the competition. Let's do an analysis of the competitions that we have, our leagues, our men's leagues, our women's leagues, our youth leagues. Are they properly structured? Can we get the grassroots approach for them moving forward? Can we commercialize and professionalize the top tier levels, especially for the Women Premier League, so that we make an attractive value proposition? I'm looking at development. Let's now look at development of our game in terms of how we want it structured. People are talking about a national way of playing, a Kenyan style of playing, and that comes with development. That comes with being able to identify talent. Because a lot of things are moving forward, technology comes into place. All this is data-driven. We must capture the data. We must capture the data in the 47 counties, 1,450 wards in this country. And we must work with the schools, because the schools are key in terms of football development. Football is a very popular popular game at that level. Let's talk to partnership people like the Ministry of Education. Let's see football entrenched in the curriculum through the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, so that we are ensuring that we are putting a firm foundation for football in this country, right from the basic unit, right from even the ward, because you have primary schools, you have secondary schools. We want football there to be structured and organized, so that as we start putting in the seeds of football development right from the grassroots level, mashinani, soccer mashinani, we are moving up forward. And that's where we need to start. Okay. All right? And at the end of the day, even the way we manage our finances is important. It's important to reassure stakeholders that we are putting in a plan. So these are the things that we're going to entrench to ensure that in the long term, we're putting in a structure of football that will be sustainable and will continue even beyond some of us.
Okay. Now, I hate to take you back to a point you just mentioned, just briefly. Would you say we do enough when it comes to scouting for talent, especially because you talked about data and all that, and you did mention the 47 counties. Is it that, because we've had a history whereby we have footballers predominantly coming from one region, which they're really good at football, but then again, that can also be attributed to the fact that we don't have people actually scouting for talent elsewhere. Like, for example, we have in the KPL, you have teams from Western, you have a few here from Nairobi, you have one from Mombasa in the top tier. How do we ensure that we actually cover the 47 counties when looking for talent? Because that's the only way, as you mentioned, we are going to bring up quality football, introduce quality football in the country, and even our national teams will be, well, performing quite, brilliantly. So what's your take on that?
And because the football structure currently is more of a funnel, things are being looked for from the top. When we invert the funnel and we go down, we're now going back to the grassroots. And when I talk about the grassroots, it is an involvement of all the 47 counties. We will be looking to ensure that we're able to spot talent and note that talent in all the 47 counties, basically. And that would be give scouting a very level playing field. So for us, it's basically looking at a pyramid structure that has mass engagement at the bottom, and then quality starts taking itself up from all the whole country. We're not just going to say, look at one region or look at strong. Of course, there are strong regions in terms of football, but we have to be equitable in the way we develop football. For us, an equitable formula for grassroots participation, grassroots development is most important for us. And you'll see, once that happens, the quality will start finding itself moving to the top.
Okay. Yeah. Now, let's talk about, in terms, along the lines of popularizing the game, attracting sponsors and all that, and more fans and whatnot. You yourself, you've been a sports commentator, a football commentator.
Yes? Yes, I have, Richard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about how well can we be able to actually lock down on, let's say broadcasters to actually broadcast our games, because the last time we had, let's say, a consistent schedule of Kenyan matches being shown was on SuperSport, and that was a while back. Meaning, up until this point, because at that time, some people were actually picking up on, let's say, making players, let's say, household names, if you do understand my gist. Yeah. And how do we ensure, because without having these names, without having Kenyan football fans actually being fanatics of, any player playing in the league, and instead people are always talking about leagues, in Europe and elsewhere. But how do we ensure that we bring back broadcasters? How do we ensure that more people get to actually watch the games on telly? Because after that, I'm guessing most people will be interested now even going onto the pitch, because it is a process. We've not had people coming out to watch matches. Yes?
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that we actually lock down on the broadcasters?
Well, for starters, we need to package the product, which is football. And that's a concerted effort of both the federation as well as the clubs. Yeah. And also clubs have to be strong. Strong clubs, better quality football, strong management. I think club licensing here is another key factor that ensures that we have an organized, structured football, so that even KBC can come on board and say, okay, this is a Kenyan product. Let's start showing it, and you guys are a free-to-air channel. So, and I'm sure if you like the product, you'll be able to broadcast it around the country. So it's a concerted effort of involving the federation, the branches, the sub-branches, as well as the clubs and other stakeholders involved. We need to ensure that we're bringing everybody back on board to get the games, to make it sweet again, to make it entertaining, because this is entertainment. And when people are entertained, they want more. Yeah, so we want to ensure that we put in a high entertainment value into the game of football, building the industry, as I said, getting various partners on board. But at the end of the day, it's the final package, the package of football, the business of football that we bring to make it attractive, so that broadcasters, yourselves, local and international, can be running for the product, can be wanting to have a stake of the football product, the football industry in Kenya, to make it a very popular game.
Exactly. And then again, it's also one of the ways that, other teams out there can actually see our players playing, and they'll be interested in that player. Like, we like the way he plays. They can be signed, elsewhere. Let's say West Africa, South Africa, and the likes.
Yeah.
Now, can you talk about players' welfare? Because that is an issue that most have been, complaining about. Most have been saying it needs to be addressed. And just today morning, I've seen something really, let's say, disturbing, for lack of a better word, in the newspaper, in one of the local dailies, and it says, and it's about, basically, it's about how the situation has been so bad currently because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That means players are not playing matches, meaning they're not getting salaries. But how do we ensure, because, okay, the story was about players being evicted. It is about Chemilil Sugar, see? Players being evicted from their houses. And it has come to a situation whereby, well, even players' wives are actually bolting, leaving their spouses, because they're saying these people cannot provide for them. But then again, that goes back to the root of the issue, investing in our players to ensure that even in times of such, let's say, at such an unknown times, the COVID pandemic, for example, the players have something, a kitty of sorts, to fall back on. How do we ensure that happens?
Richard, it's quite sad that I wouldn't even say call it players' welfare. I'll call it all footballers' welfare has actually been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. It wasn't anything that we wanted or expected to happen, but we find ourselves. It's sad. It's not only players who are affected, but referees as well, match officials, coaches, and other administrators who are involved in the game. The cessation of sporting activities meant that earnings stopped. Yeah, no more money was being pumped into football. No more revenues were being generated from football, and it's quite a hard time for a lot of the participants of the game. Clubs are struggling to pay salaries, especially like the community clubs or the self-supporting clubs that relied on sponsors, because sponsors cut out their funding to clubs. I look at institutional clubs, and you've named Chemilil. One would have thought that the institutional clubs would have at least been able to structure themselves in a way to be able to take care of their players, because their players are their employees. But it just generally gives you the harsh reality of the economic situation in Kenya. I'm quite pleased to see that the government itself has started a sports stimulus program, at least to be able to cushion a lot of the sports people in the country. And I would also appeal to even corporations and the private sector to see how they can support the sports people in this perspective. And for us here, the focus is basically on football players, because it is breaking down a lot of social elements in our lives. When you hear that people's families are breaking up,
quite sad,
and it's
really.
and leave alone that remember, we not only have male footballers, we also have female footballers. Some of them are mothers, and they're also having it hard, making ends meet. So I would like to see more emphasis in supporting our sportsmen through the stimuluses and various private appeals that can help. Because at the end of the day, these are our people. These are our heroes who give the game glory and its name. And we do hope that this pandemic will not last long so that we can come back. I think there are a lot of discussions on a sports recovery plan post-COVID for various sectors, private sector and government, but it's important that we hang in there. On the other hand, I'm seeing a lot of innovation in some players. Some players have seen that, okay, we're not able to earn from football. Let's see what else we can do. And I would encourage for the short term, so whatever other alternatives that can come out in order to eke out a living, let's do them. Let's encourage, let's support, let's give our players skills. And it's important to talk about having skills, because the shelf life of a footballer is probably 10, at most 15 years. Yeah? And beyond that, they need to have other skills. So post-COVID, I think it will be important to ensure that we're able to give our players a certain life skills to ensure that beyond football, they can survive, not only just thinking about football, but yes, they're able to adapt to situations as is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the field of people you're actually going to be competing against, you have quite strong names over there. You have former FKF President Sam Nyamwe. You have former SECAFA Secretary General Nicholas Musonyi. You have, well, Gor Mahia CEO Mundi Aduda and former Vihiga Governor Moses Akaranga. The first three that I didn't mention are actually people who are actually familiar with Kenyan football. And when we look at Musonyi, he has been, he has been active, not only in Kenya, but also in the region. So you're coming up against very, let's say, immaculate competition in the upcoming elections. And this is what I was asking. Why do you believe you're the best suited candidate to actually take the seat, take the top seat? And also, still on that, do you believe, just as we were talking about players, the shelf life of a player, 10 to 15 years, do you believe we need a fresh set of eyes when it comes to football management in Kenya?
Richard, all the ones you've mentioned, it is their football democratic right to contest. The one thing that is very clear is the term of the federation, 4 years, have come to an end. So the next level of the game is basically elections in order to bring in leadership. Either we continue with the same leadership that has been in place, or we bring in a new leadership that is to take the game to the next level. For me, I believe that I have the ideas, I have the skills to take this game to another level. And whatever they want to do, and they're all showing that they have a passion for football, I want to do it better than them. Yeah.
Okay, another thing I'm sure people would love to see an end to is the constant wrangles in Kenyan football, which brings me to the issue of, let's say, management of the top-tier league.
Yeah.
At the moment, we have a scenario whereby FKF is responsible for is mandated to run football activities here in Kenya. But then again, you have the KPL, which is running the local league, the top-tier league. To what extent do you think such, let's say, independent bodies should get that mandate to actually, like in our situation at the moment, should we have a situation where we have independent entities running, let's say, the league, or should we leave that to FKF? And how best can we avoid the constant conflicts between, let's say, the two bodies?
I think, Richard, it's important to understand that the Football Kenya Federation is the member association that is a member of CAF and FIFA. Yeah. So that is our link to the international football scenario. But the blueprint of football, especially in successful football economies, is to have a separate body manage the Premier League, the top-tier league. And that's a blueprint. That's in the UK, where you have the Premier League. In Spain, you have La Liga. In Germany, you have Bundesliga. You have Serie A in Italy. And coming closer to Africa, you have the PSL in South Africa. So we're not any different in seeking to have a globally recognized and accepted blueprint in how to manage the top-tier league. Yeah.
But then again, what about the conflicts? Because they say at the moment, we already have an agreement.
Yeah.
But how do we ensure that my authority, let me say as FKF, it actually goes up to a certain point, one that is not in conflict with you as KPL in conducting and executing your mandate?
Probably the problem with these two bodies at present is lack of communication between the two. I don't think there has been a lot of communication between the outgoing FKF administration and the KPL. I think one has to also look at the historical perspective of when the KPL came into being, and then also the restructuring of the FKF process. KPL came at a time when our footballing structure was falling apart way back in 2008. But and then after that has been steadily holding ship in terms of running the Premier League for quite a number of years. And there were quite some successful periods in between before the lean times of the recent years. At the same time, once the FKF came back into being structured properly, it found its footing in the management of football affairs. I don't think there's any conflict per se in how football should be run, especially in relation to the top league. The problem is that there is lack of effective communication between the two bodies, because at the end of the day, it's all about running football. It's all about promoting our football. It's all about building our football. These two bodies can't sit, and when I get into office, I intend to sit with the KPL and see how we can move forward. I would like the KPL to continue. Of course,
September.
Of course, we would be looking at instituting some certain structural reforms in how the Premier League is run for the benefit of the game. So here, it's all about building the game moving forward. You talked about the future of Kenyan football. The future of Kenyan football, for me, is mashinani, soccer mashinani, grassroots, but at the same time, safeguarding our best product, which is the Premier League. And that is a priority.
Okay, we'll be getting back to that conversation, but this conversation actually shapes our question today, our viewpoint question, which is, what should be done to improve football standards in the country? We've had Herbert Mochiro giving his side of the story on what he hopes to do if he gets elected into office. And you can always give us your feedback on that, on the viewpoint question, and also the opinion on the show via our social media platforms on Facebook, KBC Channel 1, and on Twitter, you can tweet us at KBC Channel 1. You can also tweet me at Munga_Mbatia, and maybe Mochiro, you can share your Twitter handle for those who want to ask you a couple of questions in regards to your aspirations to become the next FKF president. Your Twitter handle, can you?
Yeah. Habotao is my Twitter handle.
Habotao.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I asked you a question, and you were quite modest in answering it, which I do understand. But there is a reason I was asking about, do we need a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh set of eyes when it comes to sports, not only football, sports governance in this country? Because you find sometimes you have leaders actually, let's say, thriving in office, not really at the top, but you do understand my point without getting into much detail. But then that again, does that not become a problem when it comes to, let's say, even when it comes to affecting leadership at the, let's say, the sub-branches, actually, the county level and all that? Doesn't that become an issue? Because, let's say, people who were not loyal to you or loyal to you now will actually frustrate you when it comes to, when you want to actually do something positive for the industry.
With my vision and plans for Kenyan football, I'm looking at progressive minds. I'm not looking for loyalty. I'm looking for progressive minds, people who are key to develop and articulate football, people who we feel that can work in developing football. My talk is about grassroots football, soccer mashinani, and it's getting people with the same ideas, getting synergies together that are of the same notion, so that we can develop this football. As I said, it's all an inclusive game. I want to bring in former footballers, because they have been sidelined in how to contribute to football in this country, because they have a contribution to play. They have a lot to say. They have experiences, and we have a lot of former footballers around the country whom we can tap into. So one of the first things that I will do also is include former footballers in my plans, have regular consultations with them, let them give us their experiences, because we have a lot to learn from them. After all, they're the ones who have taken us through some very exciting periods in the past, and that experience should not be let to waste. So for me, Richard, it's all about seeing how synergies can come together, progressive minds. Probably with the elections coming up, there will be more people, and I can guarantee you there will be more people, more open-minded people looking to come into and contribute into the development of football at a management level, at sub-county level, at county level, and at national level.
Okay. Now, lastly, we've talked about making the game attractive here in Kenya, making everyone inclusive. Lastly, just briefly, if you may, let's say, how do we make our football competitive regionally? Because we've had a history whereby we have certain regions in Africa always leading when it comes to football matters, be it World Cup qualification, be it dominating when it comes to, let's say, the AFCON tournament, CHAN tournament. How do we ensure that our players are actually up to par with the rest of the countries here in Africa, especially West Africa, really, and Southern Africa a bit?
Yeah, I think one of the ways is that at the national team level, we must look to engage teams which are above us in our rankings. When we have the FIFA friendly weeks, we should be looking to play teams of higher quality. No disrespect to teams like Lesotho or Eswatini, but probably let's look at playing Morocco, let's look at playing Nigeria, let's look at playing Egypt, let's look at playing some of the European countries that we can get. Let's look at some of the South American opponents or Asian countries that are higher in us in ranking. To play and beat the best, you must compete with the best. So for me, that's the level that we have to look at. Yeah.
Okay. Parting shot now to all football fans in the country as you bid to become the next Football Kenya Federation president.
Well, I can say you need somebody that you can trust, that can build this product, that can ensure that the game moves to another level. I've got great plans in my vision for Kenyan football. And all I'm asking is, and I'm talking to the 94 delegates, that will be walking the talk when it comes to voting for football. Vote for development, vote for the future of Kenyan soccer, vote for a legacy that will outlive our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And the person to lead that football revolution, football change in this country is none other than me, Herbert Mwachiro. Soka mashinani. Thank you.
Okay, that was actually... For a second, if I had a vote, I would consider, just consider. Well, that was Herbert Mwachiro. Remember, you can always find him on Twitter at Harbo Tower. You can ask him any questions in regards to his candidature for the upcoming Football Kenya Federation presidential elections. And you can also reach us, as mentioned before, on our Facebook page at KBC Channel 1, on Twitter is at KBC Channel 1. My personal Twitter handle is at Munga_Mbatia. Well, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go too far as we have 2 more interviews lined up for you. Lots of content. See you shortly.
I'm Cyrus.
My God, that's them.
Wow.
Ooh, a porch swing. I know what I'm doing this weekend.
I can't let go. Just... Oh, grody.
On the next episode of Corner.
Abasi was right. For the first time in his life.
What does Abasi have to do with this?
He warned me about putting our eggs in one basket. That's a fact. Face it.
Nilishakushuonda deal na hiyo story.
Aje. Lini?
What was your biological father's name again? Otieno. Otieno Nasimiu. This looks like monthly payments, and they go back years. 10K, 20K, 50K.
What?
Welcome back to KBC's Sports Check this morning with me, Richard Munga. And, well, as I mentioned before the break, second interview, we have more content for you. And our second interview is also another familiar face. That is none other than Stephen Muneki, athletics analyst and also one of the coaches at Prisons Kenya. Now, welcome very much. Welcome to Channel 1. And once again, thank you for giving us your time. A lot has not been happening in the world of athletics until recently, whereby we had one of the most noble causes held between last week. I'm talking about the Impossible Games, which was actually quite exciting for people who had missed watching athletics, missed watching runners. Which the Impossible Games, one of the highlights of the Impossible Games was the race between the Ingo Brixton brothers and Team Chariot, which had Team Chariot, world 1500 meters champion, and Elijah Manangoi, among others. Now, maybe going forward, even before we talk about that race, what does that signify, let's say, a return to work formula, like a way to show that we can actually still have sports ongoing despite the fact that not a lot of people can congregate onto the pitch, onto the track and run and compete?
Yeah, that was it was a good gesture, because now we've been off for some time, quite some, 3 months is a long period for athletes. And having the Impossible Games, that was an eye-opener to the officials, to the federation also, to see how we can go about this. Because with this COVID-19, it has really affected athletics. You could see the performance of our top athletes. These are the best we have in the country. And we could see there were some gaps in terms of performances. But all in all, that was a good start for us, and it's a learning process. Yeah.
So what can you say about that race? We had Team Ingo Brixton, of course the brothers, Jakob, you had Philip and Henrik. And Henrik also actually broke a national record back in Norway, that is, in the 1,000 meters. But then again, as you can see, Jakob actually was the first to finish the line in 4 minutes, 50.01 seconds, while, let's say, our first runner, that is Timothy Chariot, finished the 2,000 meter race in 5 minutes, 3.05 seconds. Maybe, can we attribute that to the weather conditions currently, because they were quite brutal for Chariot? Not an excuse, but can we attribute that to, of course, the conditions that we had here?
Yeah, first, the condition, the weather was not good for us. Secondly, with the COVID-19, the athletes have not been training as the way they're supposed to. Because if you watch the Oslo Games, where the Impossible Game, the Ingrid Brixton brothers, they were in the top shape. We could not even match their speed, because it seems as if they've been training for quite some time. Timothy and his group, maybe they've been lying off for some time. And, in training, there are two phases of training. We have whereby we have the optimal level of training and the maximal level of training. So with all this combination and also other ingredients in training, it seems as if our athletes have missed a lot. And this is a wake-up call, because next year we are facing the Olympics. In a year's time, we'll be going for the Olympics. And we need to up our game before this major championship. And I'll call upon our federation to, once the country is now, we've been allowed to go back to the new normal, we need to come up with a calendar which will make our people active, a calendar which will make that, will force our athletes to train, because even though we'll go back, we will also need to follow the protocols, the guidelines from the Minister of Health. But all in all, we require to go back and do something. Otherwise, come Tokyo, things will not be good if we don't start training now. Yeah.
Now, for the 2020 Olympics that shall be held next year, of course, hopefully, as you did mention that we're not having a lot of players, a lot of athletes practicing and whatnot. How soon do you think, as an athletics coach, how soon will we see these players, get back to training? And is it, let's say, recommendable, especially because you can have a situation whereby an athlete training, let's say, in pairs, or maybe 3 athletes practicing? Would that be safe, and how soon can that be achieved if that was to be the case?
As soon as the government gives an okay for us to start training, I think we should get ready and start training, because training is something like synchronizing all your acts, making sure that you get everything right, and it takes time. So if you wait until next year, then it's not going to be possible for us to be at the top of the world. And this is something that we need to think, to ponder over as coaches and also as the federation, so that we see how we can go back and start training the way we used to train. But though with the guidance of the Ministry of Health, following the protocols, it's possible, because, for example, in Oslo, we were able to witness sprinters running. They were, the distance between one lane to another lane is 1.22. One lane measures 1.22 meters. And we could see that they were avoiding one lane. For example, if somebody is running on lane 1, lane 2 is not used, we go to lane 3. Yeah, we can also go into that and see how we can bring our athletes back into training. Though we have to be careful and also observe the protocols given by the Ministry of Health. That is important, because our health is equally important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, during the Impossible Games in Oslo and Norway, we witnessed a couple of records broken, and the one that actually stood out for me was the 300 meters record that was broken by Warholm. And it brings me back to a conversation we had a while back, and I did promise to ask about the progress of that, which was about short distance races here in Kenya, way to move them forward. Are we yet to establish a mechanism that can ensure that in future, in about, let's say, 2-3 years, we might be at least on, let's say we will be at least able to have a couple of athletes qualifying for short distance races?
Yeah, it's possible, because we've been world champions. You remember back in 2007, we won the 400 meters hurdles. And seeing what Warholm did in Norway, the guy is in his shape, he's in good shape. And for our sprinters here right now, everybody we are in disarray, because nobody has been training for some time. But we still can be able to match the world if we train, if we go back to training, and be able to work on our paces, and everything will be okay. But first thing first, we have to wait. Once the government decides that we can go back, then we can start our training. What is important now that we need to look into is we have to come out with a calendar whereby we'll be able to involve our athletes. The calendar should also be geared towards the Olympics and also future games, because after Olympics 2021, we'll have the Commonwealth Games in 2022 in Manchester. And also the 2024 will be having the Paris Games, whereby we'll have the Olympics in Paris. So all this we have to look into. But I know the federation is working towards that. So what we are waiting for is for the government to make the decision, and then the athletes will go back. Athletes are asset for this country. We brought glory to this country. We've made a lot of money for this country. And I know the government is valuing the athletes, what they contribute. And that is why the Ministry of Sports is chipping in something for our athletes. And that is good for all of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, Monique, there has been a recent trend that makes us think of, or makes me think of a situation whereby we have good athletes in this country. And when it comes to raising the standards of our athletes in this country, you take a look at what has been happening around the world in some of the countries that, before you would not really see them excelling in athletics. And to be quite honest, Norway was actually one of those countries. But then again, during the Impossible Games, 3 records were broken by Norwegians. And then again, you have the likes of Netherlands, who in recent times have been, propping up their athletes to actually compete on a worldwide level. As you can see in some of the disciplines, you have Sifan in the 10,000 meters. We have had such a situation. Does that mean that at the moment, Kenya, we should be actually at a position where we are trying to ramp up the standards of athletics in this country?
Yeah, for these athletes, for example, the ones you have named, most of them are, okay, we can't leave it to the government. We have corporate world. Most of them are being backed by the corporate world. For example, Sifan, she's a project under Nike, and they're being funded. So if we'll be able to stir up our corporate world, especially here in Kenya, they come on board and assist our athletes, we can also be up there matching the type of competition that is being offered by these athletes. And it's possible for us to be at the top. And we are not running short of talented athletes. We have them. They only need support. And the government is doing the much it can, bearing in mind that the government is looking into all the aspects of the Kenyans. And we appreciate what the government is doing. So we can say that the corporate world should also come on board and assist. And that is how we can be able to match the rest of the world, especially in field events and also sprints. It's possible for us to be able to be at the top of the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Oneki, as a coach, how do you think, still on the Impossible Games and the preparation towards it really, how do you think from your perspective as a coach, and then again, the whole process of training with an athlete, how would you explain it? How would you explain that experience for the Impossible Games, considering, as you said, these athletes had not been competitive for a while, had not even been practicing for a while? So maybe how would the process be in such a situation whereby you've had athletes who have not been active, but then again, here comes the competition. Maybe what are the basics as a coach, the easiest of mechanisms to make them, let's say, all over again, adapt quickly to the competitive nature of a race?
There are no shortcuts in training, because we have in training, we have the microcycle, and we have almost 3 phases of training, whereby we start with the conditioning. We have to condition the athletes first. And then we go to the specifics, whereby we come into the specifics of an event, and finally we prepare them for competition. So it takes time. It is a microcycle of around 6 months, at least to prepare an athlete to be fit. So it takes around 6 months. Then you start again the macro cycle. So we cannot just rush and say now we can be able to bring them at the top within a very short time. So this thing needs time. We need to work as a team. We need to get all the assistance that we can get, and it is possible, because now the main aim now is the Olympics, which is 1 year from now, almost 1 year, 1 month. So if we get the support as a coaches, because we have the best coaches who have been trained, we can be able to bring them at the level that they are required to compete, to be competitive. That is possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that is for in regards to different aspects of that, especially conditioning, because you have a situation whereby these guys have not been training at all. How do you ensure that, well, they don't do too much, let's say, running as compared to, like, it's all about preparedness and what aspect they should focus more on, especially given our current situation and looking forward, let's say the Olympic Games. We don't know how the situation will be. As much as we've seen a resumption of training in some sports disciplines, we do not know how the situation will be going forward. And that means once the Olympic Games get here next year, hopefully, how do we ensure that we can actually even get these players, these athletes, back to that, that stage, mentally and physically, to just compete? Because we can't say that we won't send athletes to go represent the country.
Yeah, that is why in the beginning I said that the federation needs to sit down, come up with a calendar. You know, the thing we start with is the calendar. If we have a good calendar whereby you engage the athletes and the coaches and also be able to compete more. For example, with the sprints. The sprints is an event whereby the athletes need to compete more. More often they need to compete so that the coaches will be able to identify the problems earlier enough and be able to synchronize the training. So that one, the buck stops with the federation. Once they come up with a good calendar, then we'll be able. For example, now this year, for some of the people who don't know athletics, maybe they are saying it is over. But once the government gives us an okay, I think it will be proper if we can come up with a calendar. From maybe July up to December, we can have a calendar whereby, because this year we've not done our national championships, the federation may decide to come up with a calendar whereby we can have our national championships maybe in November or December, and then we start off the next season, that is the 2021 season again from January, so that we'll have these athletes in competition for all this period. But if we just say we keep on training, you see, you can't keep on training without testing. You have to train and test the athletes. And testing is not only doing your time trials. It involves the athletes running against each other, running with different teams, running with different clubs. And all that is with the federation. But we know the federation is just waiting for an okay from the government, and then I think we'll start working out and see how we can be able to take our athletes to the levels that they are required to compete in an Olympic event. Yeah, I know it is hard. These are territories that we've never been, but we are ready to take our athletes to that level. Yeah.
Okay, now looking back at a while ago, we were aiming to make a good account of ourselves as Kenya at the Olympic Games in Japan. That was supposed to be held next month, end of this month and next month. But then again, as a coach, as the coaching staff and whatnot, let's say, how much do we review the performances from the past of these players, and what are some of the ways that we ensure we maximize on their potential moving forward for such a competition? Like, it's all about different methods that were used back then in previous, like in Doha, let's say, for example, in last year, and then you had this year the Olympics now, which have been pushed to hopefully next year. So maybe how much review is needed to actually assess the training methods that works and what needs to be changed?
Yeah, as I had told you earlier, the training depends with the level of fitness. For example, now, though we are not there presently training our athletes, whereby we require the coaching eye, we are not there, but we communicate with our athletes at the moment. We tell them what to do. We give them programs through WhatsApp and all this media for communication, just to keep them fit. But as coaches, we still feel that for an athlete to be able to perform at the level that is required, he requires a coach. And once the government decides that we should go back to training, of course with the protocols, we'll be able to work. You see, through training, you'll be able to identify the weaknesses. You'll be able to see what is required of you to do, and from that is how we are going to work. At the moment, we cannot say that these athletes are at this level. For example, Coach Ouma with the Team Chariot is now in a position to know where his athletes are and what he needs to do now before next year or before the next competition. The other thing also is a competition. Competition is more important. When we have the competition, for example, in Kenya, we have different seasons. We have the cross-country season. We have to go back and do the cross-country season, whereby we get our stamina, we get our endurance, for example, the middle and long-distance runners. And then we go back to track. And that is how we've been able to build our athletes. So what is important is that once we get an okay from the government, then we'll start building up. We start slowly. We can't rush, but we'll start slowly. But 1 year is enough for a coach who has been through the coaching aspect of training, can be able to handle an athlete. And most of our athletes are at, the other thing also is the training age. We've been training some of these athletes for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years. So what counts is the training age. If somebody has been training for quite some time, it will not be hard for us to bring that athlete to the level that is required to compete in a major event like the Olympics. But still, it's a tall order. We have to really work hard. We have to really look into all the aspects of training to ensure that the athletes are back in the form that they are required.
Okay. Now, as we saw in the Impossible Games in Oslo, it gives us this idea, or rather brings me this idea to ask. We saw odd distances. Let me just refer to them as odd distances. Let's say you have a 600 meters, you have 1,000 meters race, and even the 2,000 meters race, which Cheruiyot participated in, despite the fact that he participates in the 1,500 meters. Do you think that makes a difference? And do you think that maybe introducing such races here in Kenya, be it for practice reasons, gauging, assessing performances and whatnot, do you think they can actually be instrumental in, let's say, building resilience? Let's say if a person is competing in an odd race of 2,000 meters and they're performing brilliantly, yet they normally participate in the 1,500 meters, can that really help?
Yeah, we normally call them odd events. It is important for a coach to gauge an athlete. For example, you have a 100-meter runner doing 300 meters.
Exactly.
That is important for building up the athlete, to be able to gauge the athlete, how far he can run at a longer distance. And for Cheruiyot, being a 1,500-meter runner, 2,000 was okay for him, because that is important in his build-ups towards running the 1,500 meters. If you look at the Ingebrigtsen brothers, one of them did a 5-kilometer road race, and he was able to run around 13:20s, and that is pretty fast for a 1,500-meter runner. And this same guy was facing Cheruiyot in the Impossible Games, and we actually didn't have anything since the last time Cheruiyot ran in Doha. We did not have that kind of stamina and endurance from Cheruiyot. So the Norway guys were ready. They were ready for this event. But we still believe that it is a learning process for us. And I know we'll be back where we belong. It is not going to be easy, but still we'll be able to bring our athletes to that level. What is important is that we must have good build-ups. Build-ups are very important. And the other thing that the Kenyans should also look into, you remember Oslo is at the sea level, and Nairobi is around 5,000 feet above sea level. So that kind of difference is also affecting a person running in the high altitude and the other one running at the sea level. There's a big difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, finally, during such times whereby we don't have any competition really, and considering in Kenya, at the moment the federation and stakeholders in athletics, it's quite clear that we're looking forward to molding the younger generation. We're focusing more on the young athletes rather than the ones who are already established. But then again, brings in another aspect of, during this time whereby there is no competition, no training, as you mentioned, for most of them, how do you ensure that the younger players, how do you ensure that this doesn't affect them, not only physically, but mentally? Because some of them can, they can just be frustrated because of the current situation, and meaning that maybe when things start changing, when the new normal, when we start living in the new normal, we accept it even for our athletes. How do we ensure that does not affect them mentally? Because it can, in practice, it can make them, let's say, more aggressive in training, in competition. That wears them out in time. So how do we ensure that their mental state is actually kept, safe?
Yeah, the federation has started talking to the athletes, and that is why you see Barnabas Koril, who is also involved in the youth, is also the chairman of the youth. He's been moving around the country, going to visit the young athletes, especially those who are preparing for the World Under-20. They were most affected because they were preparing to run the World Under-20 in Kenya this year, and unfortunately because of COVID-19, the event was cancelled. But the federation is engaging the athletes at the very top level. We've seen our president going, visiting them, talking to them, and even the coaches. We've been instructed to talk to our athletes. We maintain a daily contact, trying to talk to them, try to assure them that this thing is here with us, but we need to see how we go about it. And through talking to them is very important, it's very crucial, trying to assure the athletes that the situation is, we are in this situation, all of us, all over the world, and we'll be able to go through it. We'll be able to manage our affairs with this pandemic, which is now has become epidemic, whereby we have to live with it. So the most important thing is to assure the athletes, try to talk to them, and try to manage their affairs. For example, now the government has been giving something to our athletes, and that's very important. That's showing them that we still value them, and we still believe that they are a very important asset to this country. And that is important for us, for all of us, especially the athletes. Yeah.
And on that, do you think that most federations in future should be prepared for such an incident whereby we have the government doing quite a noble thing, the 10,000 stipend per athlete or player, any athlete in Kenya per month? Do you think in future we should have a situation whereby federations put aside such a kitty to, let's say, complement what the government is doing?
Yeah, the other day I saw the IOC president saying that unfortunately nobody was keeping anything for the rainy day.
Exactly.
So we need to come up with those structures whereby federations keep something for a rainy day. You never know. This life has taken us to other levels whereby we could not imagine, whereby people have been caught without knowing that we'll have this kind of situation.
True.
So it will be important for all of the federation to at least save something. In case we have this kind of scenario, they'll be able to chip in and assist the sportsmen and women, because you all depend on competition. If we don't have competition, then we have nothing to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And some of our athletes have families, they have people who depend on them, and we are in different levels. Some are rich, some are poor, some are just starting. So it is important that all of us look into our situation, and even the federation also should also be able to look into the situation of our athletes and be able to tell them that whatever you get, you have to keep something aside for the future, because nobody knows about the future. And also the federation should also have something, like the way the government is assisting the federation. We've seen the World Athletics also chipping in something to at least be able to stabilize the lives of our athletes. And that is very important in terms of management.
Okay.
We should have something for a rainy day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know I said finally the last time, but now finally, as we wind up, it just hit me in regards to the Impossible Games. What's the possibility of having more virtual races, even if it's just here in Kenya, different regions, different towns? What's the possibility of having more virtual races in a bid to, let's say, maintain the bars in the sport? And also that would, of course, make the athletes have, stay in that competitive mind, for lack of a better word or phrase. What's the possibility of achieving that?
Yeah, there's a possibility of that, because we need more of this. This keeps athletics alive. This ensures our athletes they train and prepare for this kind of events. And also, I would urge our county government to, like now Mombasa, whereby it's at sea level, or Malindi, they should have their stadium ready, because if you want to have a competition like the one we had in Norway, whereby we are on equal terms, we should take our athletes to the sea level.
But have we been doing that, or have we even been exploring that, that possibility of taking them there?
Now it is a moment. These are different times. We can also be taking our athletes to the sea level, like Mombasa or Malindi, whereby they can run at the same level with the athletes outside the country, because we don't even know whether we'll be able to be traveling outside the country.
Indeed.
With the kind of situation that is there, and athletics should continue. We should keep on training our athletes. We keep on competing, and that's important.
Okay.
So our county government should come in and come up with the stadiums. For example, like what the ministry is doing now, they're ensuring that all the stadiums are ready, and that is a good gesture for sportsmen and women in this country. Yeah.
Okay, and with climate change, you never know. We can't always be relying on different regions to trade, going to Eldoret and the likes. You have to keep your mind open to such possibilities.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Coach Moneki. Always a pleasure to have you in studio. And for the viewer, that wraps up our second interview on today's edition of Sports Check on KBC Channel 1. And always remember the platforms to give us your feedback on the show at KBC Channel 1 on Twitter, and still KBC Channel 1 on Facebook, and at Munga_Mbatia. And finally, we're going to be having the last interview shortly. But first, let's take a short break.
My name is Maringa Jeremiah. I'm a Paralympian. I play para-badminton and para-powerlifting. I take this opportunity to thank the government of Kenya through the Cabinet Minister of Sports, Culture and Heritage, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, for cautioning us athletes during this trying moment of COVID-19. This money has really helped me personally. So, okay, I've been able to pay to the Likidogo, and I've been able to do small shopping, which will be able to push me in the next 1 month. I am glad and happy that the government of Kenya is going to caution me in the next 3 months. Thank you, and I pray that this will continue even after COVID.
Yote ndawai do iko tu sawa kwa macho yako.
Unataka kwako?
Ati nini? Why are you people shouting?
Are you okay?
Mwanamke ninakuona sana. Ni wanaume hapa Mombasa wameisha.
Ni nini mbaya?
Nowadays we have so many unfaithful people.
What?
We need to talk about her every time we are together.
I'd be very careful the way you address me.
Zako zinakuangaje? Huwezi kaa dakika mbili hata bila kuteta.
You will all sign new contracts.
And I am supposed to be briefed.
What? Taki ujinga.
Oof.
welcome back to Sports Check here on KBC Channel 1. Now, for our last interview here on Sports Check, we are going to be discussing football, international football in particular, as we're going to be reviewing some of the matches that happened over the weekend. We had the Bundesliga continuing, you had the La Liga restarting, and, well, also you had Serie A restarting, but EPL, which is what most have been expecting, that is the English Premier League, shall be coming back to your screens on Wednesday this week, that is the 17th, whereby you have two fixtures, Aston Villa hosting Sheffield United at Villa Park, and then again you have Manchester City hosting Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium. And we're going to be starting with the Bundesliga, but before that, we're joined in studio by Greg Mulemi, who is a football analyst, soccer analyst, and also a sports journalist. And Mulemi, before we get into international football, we had Herbert Mochiro vying to become the next president of Football Kenya Federation. And maybe what are your views on what he says are his ambitions once he gets into office?
First of all, I'd say it's interesting because this race has attracted people from different cadres of life. You see Mochiro coming on from the other side of rugby. He's versatile. He knows
also a sports commentator.
Also a sports commentator. We have the likes of the former Sekafa chairman, that is Musonye. Then we have the likes of Gor Mahia CEO Aduda. Mr. Karanga, the former Vihiga governor. But I've listened to Mr. Mochiro. I think he has a good vision. But practically, I don't know if it will work because right now you look at the situation in the country. We are having a lot of problems, especially in the soccer industry, the sports fraternity at large. But then he's highlighted some of the problems. Now, the problem that lays in, rather something that will really determine is whether he's able to convince those delegates that have been there for over that 1 decade to try and get some new change, because already the office that is in place right now is called Team Change. Right now they call themselves Team Blue. It means that they tried in doing things differently after taking over from Mr. Nyamoya, who is also a candidate apparently in this election. So I'm really looking forward to how he plans, Mr. Mochiro plans to put this in place, because in the common human eye, he might look like maybe a preferred candidate to some people, but then when it comes to the real thing, those guys who vote, maybe they have a different opinion. But all I can say, I wish him all the best.
Okay. Now we shall be keeping you up to date with more updates in regards to the FKF upcoming election, presidential or otherwise. But now let's get into matters Bundesliga. Over the weekend, quite a number of matches played, and Bayern Munich, who are the leaders, beating Borussia Mönchengladbach 2-1, meaning that the gap between them and Borussia Dortmund still remains at 7 points. That is after Borussia Dortmund beat Fortuna Düsseldorf 1-0. That was an away match. Greg, can we say that just like most of the seasons, they should just give Bayern the title?
Apparently, they're doing something different. They're winning away from home, something that not many Bundesliga teams have done since the resumption of the league. Them being the champion select shows that they have been doing some things. I think the first half of the season, Bayern Munich make sure that they make use of it very well by collecting maximum points whenever possible. And it's something that these other sides have not been doing. Dortmund have always been coming closer, but then they lack that finishing edge, especially when it comes to after the winter break. I think they have a winter break between December and January. Dortmund always slides there. And the likes of Leipzig, the likes of Mönchengladbach, the likes of Leverkusen. And that's where Bayern Munich takes advantage. And you look at the structures Bayern Munich have put in place, in that they have a squad that can be rotated and still maintain the same system without anyone noticing the difference. Yes, if the last weekend Lewandowski was not there, the person who stepped in played in a very good role and ensured that they won away at Mönchengladbach. It's something that we've not seen with other teams. When Haaland was absent at Dortmund, you could see there was a difference because there was no talisman, rather a target man to score the goals. That's the difference between Bayern Munich and these other teams in Germany. That's why they say that it's a boring league, because Bayern Munich just simply get it right. Now I think it's the 9th season they're lifting the title, the 8th or the 9th. Yeah.
And well, still on Borussia Dortmund, because I have two issues that I would like you to comment on. One, as you said, sometimes Borussia Dortmund, when it comes to, sometime closer to the end of the league, they kind of actually falter. Can that be attributed to, one, as you mentioned about the systems and whatnot, and two, the fact that the team is mostly made up of young players, and that's why most younger players prefer going to Borussia Dortmund, as they can get the chance to actually get, playing time, which is why Haaland snubbed quite a number of big European teams to go to Borussia Dortmund. Can that be a huge factor? And also, can you attribute the presence of, let's say, fans in the stadium? Because the last few matches, Borussia Dortmund, it's usually a high-scoring team. The last few matches, 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. You get the drift of that. So maybe are we experiencing it because a younger squad and a different environment whereby there are no fans in stadiums and whatnot? What exactly is it? Or is it a combination of all three factors?
First of all, on the fans, I think fans play a major role, especially for the home teams, when they want to give them that extra push. And it's what many German teams have been using, especially before the COVID-19 pandemic arose. You look at the teams right now, there's no home advantage. And that's why you find teams like Paderborn are really, really pounded at home by sides that visit them at their backyard. Dortmund, we know them with the fans. I think maybe things could have been different if at all this pandemic never occurred. But you look at how they've been reacting to these matches, especially after the resumption. They've not really been clinical. It shows you that the 12th man has played a major role before, and it's something that they're missing. And then when you come to the structures of Borussia Dortmund, I think in the early 2000s, they suffered a major slump in their economically, and most players left, and it was a difficult time until the likes of Jurgen Klopp came and tried making sure that they started making something. And I think them going back to the policies of nurturing young talent, making them better players and then selling them for a profit is something that they've been doing for a while, and it's working for them. But I believe it's not the best approach if they want to win titles, especially outside Germany. We've seen how they lost the Champions League final a couple of years ago to Bayern Munich, the same Bayern Munich. It was all about experience that played part in that victory, because you find that only maybe 3 or 2 players have vast experience in that team, and then the rest are upcoming players. You'll find that Haaland will be there. He's not right now. He's 19 years old. Another 3-4 seasons, then you hear that maybe he's going to Madrid, PSG, or somewhere. They'll sell him for a hefty price.
Or Bayern Munich, which is usually where most of them end up.
Just the way they did to Jan Koller, just the way they did to Lewandowski, and now we have this young man everyone is talking about, Haaland. It's something that they've been doing. But then, is it a good thing for the players? Yes, because it develops them. But then for the club, it just shows you that this is a stepping stone to maybe becoming a better Bayern Munich player in the future.
Okay. Yeah. Now, at the bottom of the table, of course, Paderborn's hopes, of course, of survival are quite slim at the moment. After 5-1 thrashing by Werder Bremen, meaning that Paderborn, after 31 matches, they only have 20 points. Werder Bremen is actually 17th, not even in the top 10. Yet they thrashed them 5-1, meaning at least they have 28 points currently, which is same as Dusseldorf in the 16th position. So this quite actually makes quite an interesting battle for relegation and survival in the league. But then again, at the top, Bayern Munich, as I mentioned earlier on, leading on 73 points, Dortmund on 66. But then again, the battle for the number 3 position involves 3 teams: RB Leipzig, Bayer Leverkusen, Borussia Mönchengladbach. Which is your favorite, considering Leverkusen have been quite inconsistent in the last few games? Actually, even before matches were halted due to the coronavirus, it was actually quite, there was some inconsistent performances right there. But then again, Leipzig also not so promising. So which team, according to you, would you bet your money on to finish in the top 3?
Honestly, I look at Leipzig and Mönchengladbach, because Leverkusen without Kai Havertz, they're just an average team, and this is a player that is being sorted for by everyone, especially Bayern Munich. You have the likes of PSG, Liverpool, Manchester United. So it's a one-man team at the moment, and that's why they're struggling when it's not there. But you look at Mönchengladbach, at least they have some level of consistency, and it's showing. So it will boil down to either them or Leipzig.
So Leipzig has the better chances?
Yeah, I believe Leipzig has a better chance because you look at how they reacted after their second loss. After the resumption, they lost their second match, and then they've tried to come up and probably get those points that they really needed. And right now, sitting at 62 points for adrift on Dortmund, it shows you that it's possible for them to finish third.
Okay, we shall be resuming that conversation in a bit, but at the moment we take you to Nyandarua County, whereby the governor, that is Governor Kimemia, has been visited by two cabinet secretaries, Fred Matiang'i and of Interior and Honorable Mutahi Kagwe of the Health Ministry. At the moment, our partner, our colleague Serafina Robi is in Nyandarua to give us a glimpse of what is happening on the ground at the moment as Governor Kimemia addresses the visiting party.
Indeed, a very good morning, Munga. We're coming to you live from Nyandarua County, whereby the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe as well as the Interior CS Fred Matiang'i have already arrived. Just in one of the measures or the meetings that they're conducting or going around the counties, just trying to find out how counties are prepared for the COVID-19. Now with me here is the Nyandarua governor, who is going to tell us how the county has been prepared for the COVID-19, given that it hasn't recorded even a single case of the COVID-19. Karibu sana.
Asante. We have been very, my name is Francis Kimemia from Nyandarua County. We've been very keen on sensitizing our people on those basic principles of social distancing, the masks, wash of hands every 20 minutes, 22 seconds, providing almost 8,000 water tanks in all the market centers, fumigating market centers every week, routinely as a standard, and making sure people don't crowd in marketplaces and trading centers, talking to our young people to become our frontline staff, frontline volunteers in terms of educating the older people, and of course keeping the old people in the homes and the young people in the homes, crossing bars. At this time, we have procured 110,000 free masks for those who could not afford to wear masks. The other 190 have been able to buy their own masks, to make their own masks. We're also making them locally here. We have been able to get PPEs from KEMSA. We have procured PPEs worth almost 24-25 million shillings. We have provided 240 million shillings in the budget, in the county budget, to provide food for those who are extremely in difficult circumstances. They are very hungry. We are constructing the JM ICU. For the first time, we have an ICU facility for 13 beds at 70 million shillings. And we have prepared 300 beds in the county in case we have cases of COVID. And over 11,000 quarantine beds have been identified in this county in case there's a spread that threatens health security in this county. So we are working together with our people, with our volunteers, Nyumba Kumi, with our security systems, and we have done quite well. We thank God we don't have a single case in this county.
And given that you do not have even a single case of COVID-19, is it because have you conducted any mass testings, or to what measures have you gone through to assure that there is no one that has the COVID-19?
All those who go to hospitals are tested on the roads, all the roads leading into the county, or the entry points into the county. We have testings taking place in all those testing centers. We have tested over 20,000 people, and all of them are negative. So far, they are all negative. So we are hoping for the best. We are also to urge people to continue maintaining those principles that have been given out, regulations by the Ministry of Health.
I've also seen some of the governors or counties complain of not getting enough funding to help in the mitigations of COVID-19. What would you have to say about here in the Nyandarua County?
We've been able to allocate, as I said, we have reallocated our budget, 240 million shillings from our budget. Of course, it meant that we do less roads and less water. But you have to help the people, because you can't lead people who are sick or people who are dead. So I know most governors have now reallocated their budgets. We have also received the 5 billion. 5 billion has already been allocated to the counties. As to whether it has reached that at least there is that goodwill. I think that's what we should ride on. I think this should be an initiative, a partnership, and not a blame game. If you blame each other, it will not work. It should be a partnership so that we can save our people.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, that is the governor of Nyandarua County, just giving us a glimpse of what we're going to get later on how they have prepared themselves in the case of COVID-19 mitigation measures. Well, right now he's rushing into a meeting to go and meet with the Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, as well as the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, who have already arrived in the county. Well, later on he'll go around the county to just try and find out how prepared the county is. And later on we'll have a comprehensive brief from all the CSs, as well as the county governor, who we've just spoken to. Back to you in studio, Munga.
Oh, thank you very much, Rafina Roby. And for a more comprehensive report on that, of course, tune in to subsequent bulletins. Talking about the 1 p.m. bulletin, that is the Channel 1 lunchtime news. You have Darubini at 7 and Channel 1 News Hour. Just among the things that Rafina was questioning Francis Kimemia, County Governor of Nyandarua, on was about the ongoing efforts in beating, or rather on containing the coronavirus. And as you heard, Governor Kimemia mentioned that 20,000 tests have been conducted in Nyandarua County, and well, fortunately, none has been negative. So, of course, none has been positive, rather. Apologies for that. Of course, we shall be bringing you more on that in our subsequent bulletins. Now, if we could kindly continue with the conversation we were having back to football matters. And as we wind up on the Bundesliga, just to mention some of the other results this weekend, Cologne were 2-1 losers to FC Union Berlin. You had Hertha Berlin of also 1-4 losers to Eintracht Frankfurt, and Wolfsburg and Freiburg played out to a 2-2 draw. Now, another league is back. I'm talking about the La Liga, which is one of the leagues that most people are looking forward to this weekend, whereby you had Real Madrid playing yesterday, beat Eibar 3-1, and then again on Saturday, the late night game at 11 p.m., you had Barcelona thrashing Real Mallorca 4-0. Messi scoring a goal, assisting 2 other goals. That was quite impressive. What do you make of that performance?
I think it's the best league in the world.
The La Liga.
Yeah, the La Liga, because you look at the level of competitiveness this time around, it's quite close. No one yet knows who will be the person to go down.
True.
Yeah, and who will be the champion. Barcelona making a statement that they left it from where it was last time out, when they were really soaring high, beating Mallorca 4-0. I think it was they felt like it was just normal. It's the same, yeah, it was a training session for Barcelona. You could see the way the likes of Braithwaite were playing. It's like he was integrated into the team, whereas he's just a squad player in the team. But Messi has also shown that he still has what it takes to give Barcelona some spark of life when they need it most, 2 assists and a goal. But then you look at the league table, it's interesting. Just 2 points adrift. Real Madrid showing that they can also do it home away from home. That is at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. But then in the second half, I feared for the worst. If they got a team that was well oiled enough to challenge them, then they might have as well managed maybe a point against Eibar.
Which is quite interesting, because the game was a 3-0 by halftime. Yes. Yet by full time it was 3-1.
3-1.
There were glimpses of, I don't know if I would say fatigue.
It seems fatigue, and I think maybe the environment. They're used to training. They are not having a serious match at the Di Stefano Stadium.
Yeah.
It's something that I think they need to work out on, because you could see the energy levels dropped in the 60th minute. The likes of Marcelo looking literally tired, seeking for water breaks and things like that. Eibar, on the other hand, felt that they could do something. Credit to Thibaut Courtois, who really had a good match, kept the team in the game for quite some time, and it's something that they really need to do, or rather improve, because the La Liga matches are coming back to back. Sevilla have a match tonight. On Wednesday we have other matches, so it shows you that there's no time to rest, and this is the time to know whether you have a squad that can have that resilience, or a squad that is just there to make numbers.
Okay. Yeah. And actually most are asking whether Eden Hazard has once again sustained an injury, but as Coach Zidane has confirmed earlier this morning that he did not get any injury, was just taking a break, considering he had not participated in matches for a while. As you remember, he was from surgery before all matches were halted on the 15th of March. Now, looking at the La Liga table, quite interesting, 2 points, separating Real Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona on 61, Real Madrid on 59 points. But then again, Sevilla on 50 points. Sevilla plays tonight against Levante, away to Levante actually. But what I wanted to talk about really was the detrimental state of Atletico Madrid, which in normal situations you have Barcelona or Real Madrid leading, and then you have Barcelona or Real Madrid in second place. Atletico Madrid is always that. But in this situation, after 28 games, Atletico Madrid are sixth actually, on 46 points. So what can you say have been their downfall this season, considering they had quite a good Champions League outing the last time they played? They beat
Liverpool on March 11th.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a team under transition. If you look at the players in the team, most of them are upcoming youngsters. You have the likes of Joao Felix. We have Kieran Trippier from Tottenham. Diego Costa is in his yesteryears of his career. I don't think he has much to offer. So they are trying to bring in new boys. The likes of Morata are not really proven match winners. We've seen him at Chelsea, Real Madrid. He's not a player you can rely in week out. And them losing Griezmann just shows you how much he was important to that team. They've really struggled, and it's something that Coach Diego Simeone knows that he has to do better when it comes to the Primera Liga. In the Champions League, they might do well because it's a knockout stage, so they can decide maybe let's win 1-0 at home and defend away and give them a chance in that competition. But in the league, it seems to be taking toll on them. It's something that we might not see them improve in the next season, maybe the following season when this team has integrated well enough and become maybe a stronger unit.
Hopefully 9 matches, we still have 9 matches to go, so hopefully maybe that can be the turning point. And, well, the bad performance once again was exhibited yesterday as they drew 1-1 against Athletic Bilbao. Now looking at the bottom of the table, Espanyol on 23 points, and I'm quite sure it was a great performance for them once they beat Alaves 2-0 on Saturday. But you have Leganes in the 19th position, Mallorca obviously suffering 4-0 defeat against Barcelona. Which of the 3 teams, 18, Mallorca sits in the 18th position, Leganes 19, Espanyol 20. Which team do you think has the better chances of survival, considering the next best placed team in number 17 is Celta Vigo on just 26 points actually. So even Celta Vigo and Eibar are not really that safe. But gauging by the performances so far this season and by the opening weekend, which was this past weekend, which teams do you think have the possibility of going down?
I think the only team that is safe here is Alaves because at 32 points, they seem safer.
With 9 matches to go.
9 matches to go. Eibar, Celta Vigo, Mallorca, Leganes and Espanyol, I think they're really in a tough neck-to-neck battle. And it's something that will be interesting as it goes because in the next 9 matches, there's a possibility that a team can pick up to 20 points. It's something that each team can do that and they can survive. But you look at the performances, I think Mallorca are really playing with fire. Espanyol have just shown that they can pick results when needed. But Mallorca losing 4-0 to Barcelona, I think
not a good look.
Not a good look for them because they were at home, they had all the advantage. But then just read somewhere the La Liga president Javier Tebas says that they are looking at ways of allowing a few fans into the stadium by the end of the season.
By the end of the season.
Yeah, it's something very interesting because I look at these sides, like Mallorca at home, I think they missed their fans because that was a very surprising result for them, especially at home. Yeah, if fans can be allowed, maybe you can see a little bit of life for these 3 teams that are really fighting this relegation. And who knows, we might see 1 or 2 pull a surprise and maybe survive. But for me, Mallorca is a team that I can say might as well be going to Segunda B.
Because there's no promise there.
There's no promise at them. I saw them, they were flat. They didn't show any spark against Barcelona. They didn't show the direction, and we were wondering where the goal's going to come from.
Okay, now before we get into the English Premier League, let's talk about Osasuna. Their return to La Liga has been somehow impressive for a team that's sitting in the 11th position, 35 points. And yesterday, forced 1-1 draw against 4th placed Real Sociedad. What's your take on that?
Impressive. It just reminds me of some team in England, Sheffield United.
Sheffield United?
Yeah. It's teams that know the purpose of coming into the league. They want to survive. And to them, they made sure that in the first leg, they did their business, just as we said. getting the maximum points that will keep them safe from relegation. And right now they can say that let's pick 9 or 10 points from the remaining matches and survive, focus into the 2020-21 season and try get better results. I think it's really working for them.
Okay. Interesting enough, as we were getting into the English Premier League, you brought up Sheffield United, one of the teams that will actually participate in the first game of the English Premier League when it resumes on Wednesday. Sheffield is playing away to Aston Villa at the Villa Park. Aston Villa not looking quite good so far the season, while Sheffield United sit 7th on 43 points, which is just 5 points off the top 4, meaning Chelsea in the 4th position, Sheffield in the 7th position, a difference of 5 points. What do you think will be the outcome of that match? Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. Aston Villa sitting 19th on the log.
I believe Sheffield United have just shown the way that if you are promoted to a higher division, you don't need to overhaul the whole team just because you don't believe on the guys who did what, who helped you rise to that rank. They maintained their squad. I think they made around 2 to 3 signings only, bringing in the likes of
and not even first-team players.
Not even first-team players. Players who've really struggled to come and get a first-team place in the team. And you look at their away record, Sheffield United, I think they've lost only twice on the road this season. They've drawn massively and won a couple of matches. It just shows you that Chris Wilder knows where to get the results. At away, let me get a point. At if worst, let me win. And their only loss, I think, was at Liverpool, I believe. So it just shows you that this is a team that really means business when it comes to racking in those points. And them being ahead of the likes of Arsenal, Tottenham, it just shows you that they can start believing that the Champions League is on their horizon and the worst can be a Europa League place. And Aston Villa being second last in the league, to them, I think it's done. It's still undone because you look at where they are right now, 25 points. It's not really promising for them. The likes of Bournemouth are there, struggling, West Ham. And these are sides that are seasonal, perennial survivors. Look at West Ham, Watford, Bournemouth, Brighton.
All
They've
in
been
danger
there.
of relegation.
Yes, they all survived during this time. So it's their character, Aston Villa, that will make them maybe scrap through.
Well, some Manchester United players, fans actually can be, quite, they're grinning at the moment. They're quite happy because if Aston Villa goes down, that increases their chances of signing Jack Grealish. We're going to see how that turns out. And you did mention Arsenal, London teams not performing so well, except for Chelsea sitting 4th on the log on 48 points. But Arsenal has one of the biggest matches, I would say, this season for them. They're going to be away to Manchester City on Wednesday. How do you think that match is going to play out, considering Manchester City is second on the log after 28 games on 57 points? Well, Arsenal sits a distant, very distant 10th on 40 points. 17
points apart. It just shows you the difference between the two teams. Manchester City know that the league title is far-fetched right now, unless something dramatic happens, which I really don't expect with the number of matches remaining and the kind of opposition that Liverpool will be facing. But then it's about the master meeting the student this time round with Arteta. Guardiola hosting Arteta, who's been the think tank of Guardiola for, I think, the last 3 seasons.
Which is actually quite evident considering the 57 points Manchester have currently after 28 games. That's a poor record. 11 points worse off considered to
the same last time out.
Exactly.
It's something that shows you that it shows you that Arteta was really important to Manchester City, especially being the second in command to Pep Guardiola. Guardiola is trying. I think he brought in a new assistant manager last week. I don't know if he'll still have time to settle in or just come straight into the act. It's something that is really interesting. But Arsenal have even more problems going into this tie. Their captain has not yet signed a new contract extension. His contract expiring next summer. Aubameyang. So he says that it's upon the club to decide whether they want to keep him or he looks for other options. So if you have your captain not settled or be in a good way going into such fixtures and you want to qualify, okay, the most realistic thing is at the Europa League, because the Champions League, I think it will be far-fetched for them, Arsenal fans. You look at them, they're 9th. They're closer to the relegation than they are to maybe earning a Champions League spot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's really tough. And to them winning at Etihad, I think it will really need quite something brilliant to come up with maybe a result.
Yeah, well, Arteta has, he has had an impact on Arsenal, if we're being quite honest. I mean, a few things here and there needs to change, but Arteta's impact cannot be downplayed at Arsenal. And on the issue of Aubameyang, some would say, I had a conversation with some really, fanatical football fans the other day, and they insisted Aubameyang has been instrumental in Arsenal's performances. I can't say excellent in the last 2 seasons, but then again, look at his age. He's aging, 31 years, and Arsenal has a new system whereby if a player is, let's say, a year and a half or 2 years, from the end of the contract, there is a good chance that he is going to be sold. So that rests on the management entirely. And Manchester City also have a lot to play for in that match, because Manchester City need to maintain their momentum. You do remember that they qualify for the quarters of the Champions League, but then again, they face a Champions League ban. How do you think that will play out? Of course, the UEFA ban for 2 seasons, if indeed they're found to be guilty of breaking or going contrary to the FA rules.
I think Manchester City, I think it's the only team right now that has a realistic chance of winning a treble this season. They're still in the Champions League, they're still in the FA Cup. They're still...
they actually won the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, they've already won the Carabao Cup, so they have 2 trophies to chase. It's something that Guardiola really wants to do, because he knows that the league might be far stretched for them right now, with Liverpool leading, hoping 25 points ahead. Going into this match, they also have a tough 1 month ahead, because the final verdict on whether the decision to expel them from the Champions League for 2 seasons will be upheld or not, will be known in the first 2 weeks of July. So they go into this match knowing that let's play for fun, maybe try and cement our second position. Maybe the decision can go in our favor and we'll be readmitted into the UEFA Champions League next season. But then they also have this pride. Guardiola doesn't want Arteta to come and shine him at home.
Of course.
Yeah, and it's something that I think this will be the match to watch. And he knows that if Arsenal beats them and Liverpool beats Everton at Goodison Park, then it's sealed and done. They start thinking of who finishes between second and third and fourth. Yeah.
Okay, now after Aston Villa versus Sheffield, Manchester City versus Arsenal, that is on Wednesday the 17th. On the 19th, that is Friday, you have Norwich City versus Southampton. And another big game, Tottenham Hotspurs versus Manchester United. The match is set to be played at the Tottenham Stadium. That is in North London. 4 points separating the two teams. Manchester United in 5th position on 45 points. Tottenham Hotspur on the other end on the 8th position with 41 points. How is that going to play out? Already Mourinho has already begun with his dirty tactics, what most football fans would call them. How do you think that will play out?
It's interesting because Mourinho knows that he still has a chance of getting his team into the top 4, rather nowadays they say the top 6 of the table, and hope anyone sleeps between Chelsea, United or Wolves and Sheffield. In the first leg it ended 1-1. It was quite a dull match because you could see there was no much to separate the two teams apart from the Son's goal and Rashford scoring the penalty. Right now Mourinho knows that he has the perfect place to instill revenge on Manchester United, because he never left there under very good circumstances, and
he never lives anywhere.
He lives there. Yeah, he has to leave a stain when he lives there, and it's something that he really needs to make sure that he gets it right, because I understand he's been told that this is a match that will define your future. If you want us to give you fans, then start showing by winning important matches. I don't think he's won any important match this season. He's lost almost all of them. So this is one thing that we'll try and show the board. This is the Mourinho we hired. This is the Mourinho to take us from one level to another, because in his first interview he said that in the 2019-20 season, I'm not going to win the Premier League. In the 2020-21 season, I believe I can win the season. So let's see what he can do with this break that has been there in the last 100 days.
Okay, Tottenham Hotspurs will be without Dele Alli, who was suspended after quite a controversial post on Twitter. And Manchester United have been boosted by the return of Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford. So I would say it's a full squad for Manchester United. On Saturday, you have Watford versus Leicester City, Brighton versus Arsenal, meaning Arsenal have to play 2 matches in the, within, let's say 4 days. West Ham United versus Wolves also on Saturday, and last match on Saturday involves Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. On Sunday, Newcastle United versus Sheffield, Aston Villa versus Chelsea, which sits 4th on the log, and, well, Everton, placed 12th on the log, is going to be taking on Liverpool. That will be our last detail on today's show. Everton versus Liverpool, that is the Merseyside derby. Liverpool only needs 2 matches to win the title.
I think they can do it, but it all depends on how the Manchester City versus Arsenal plays out. But then, I don't think they really need to do much. You look at the preparations, I can confidently say that they've done better than other teams. Like the first 11v11, it was Liverpool who started doing that. And all the players are fit. I doubt if there is anyone who's so it will be a competition of who starts and who will be the player who goes and says that I was on the pitch when we beat so and so to clinch the title. So it's a healthy competition that will play out to their favor.
Okay, now as we wind up quickly, top 4. Who do you think are going to complete in the next in the top 4 of the Premier League?
Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, and Sheffield United.
Manchester United or Manchester City?
Manchester City.
Manchester City, Chelsea, and Sheffield.
Yes, Sheffield. But Wolves have an outside chance of maybe pulling out a surprise.
Okay. Remember, we're going to be bringing you all the updates in case there are any injuries before match day. Those matches start on Wednesday the 17th. 2 matches, as I did mention, going through to the weekend, through to Sunday. And we shall be bringing you all the updates and that and all the results. Remember, you can always get more updates and news on our website at www.kbc.co.ke. Well, thank you for your company on Sports Check. That has been Greg Mulemi. I'm Richard Munga. Don't go too far, as Nancy Okware is coming up next with Tamrini.
Nishike mapema nisiposhika hii simu mapema utakasirika. Unajua mimi nikiwa mtu ya marathon najua niko na experience kabisa, niko na experience. If you don't hurry, you will not break the record. Okay, wacha nishike hii simu.
Kupata lazima nishike, bonyeza star 811 star 961 hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 961 hash.
My name is Maringa Jeremiah. I'm a Paralympian. I play para-badminton and para-powerlifting. I take this opportunity to thank the government of Kenya through the Cabinet Minister of Sports, Culture and Heritage, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, for cautioning us athletes during this trying moment of COVID-19. This money has really helped me personally. So, okay, I've been able to pay to the Likidogo, and I've been able to do small shopping, which will be able to push me in the next 1 month. I am glad and happy that the government of Kenya is going to caution me in the next 3 months. Thank you, and I pray that this will continue even after COVID.
I'm Cyrus.
My God, that's them.
Wow! Ooh, a porch swing. I know what I'm doing this weekend.
I can't let go.